All right, now we are recording. Happy Thursday. Whoops, I just made a mistake. Does anybody see what mistake I made? March, not February. Happy Thursday, March 24th. It is a rainy day today, so it's a great day to get some writing done. Great day to do indoor activities, lots of reading and writing. So what we're going to begin with today is we are reviewing Robert Kaplan's Rhetorical Form, and that is where we left with class on Tuesday.
Good morning.
Good morning, Bruna. So after we review the rhetorical form, we'll go over thesis statements. We'll also start practicing writing a few thesis statements, and then we're going to go deeper into the outline of a 5-paragraph essay, which is the current assignment. After that, we'll take a break, and then we're going to look a bit more into the story of the Latin Quarter with a lecture by Ken Tanjvik. Ken Tanjvik was one of the people who was interviewed in the documentary that we watched. And then we're going to begin writing an outline. So the very end of class, I'll leave for everybody to start doing their assignments. And that is it. Any questions before we get moving?
No, teacher.
Fantastic. All right, let's get started. So this is where we left off last week. Now, the rhetorical form is how different people from different languages will structure their argument in an essay. I mentioned last week, this is from 1966, so this is an outdated term. I'll just say East Asian. East Asian languages generally use this format. Romance languages are characterized as Latin-based, like Portuguese, Spanish, French, and Italian, languages that are rooted primarily in Latin. Russian is a little bit broader than Russian. It's really a larger Slavic base of languages, like Ukrainian, Polish, and so forth. That will take this pattern right here. Semitic languages like Hebrew, Yiddish, those languages will have this back and forth pattern. Now, I didn't actually give everyone a definition last week of rhetorical. So who wants to take a stab at this one? What is rhetorical? I didn't define the word thoroughly last week. Anybody want to give it a shot? Just quickly look it up on their phone. Rhetorical. I'll actually send everyone the definition.
Related to the art, George?
I'll say it again.
That is something related to the art.
Not related to art.
The definition said, rhetoric is the art of speaking and writing effectively.
Yes, yes, the art of speaking and writing effectively. And I think, Estefania, you were reading, if you Googled it, you were reading half the definition. It's the art of rhetoric, and if you look at Estefania, if you look at this, I see the exact same definition you pulled up on your phone. If you look up, sorry, it's the white screen when I hold it up. Look at the second definition, Estefania, expressed in terms of.
Oh, let me. Skill in the Wait, it's not this.
Yeah, scroll down just the what's next definition.
Maybe. 1 second.
No worries.
It's not that.
I'll send this definition to everybody right now. Here we go.
History I have. My second said the study of the study of principles and rules of composition formulated by critics of ancient times.
Yeah. That is absolutely correct. A more simplistic definition, though. I'm going to send everybody the dictionary. I'm sending everyone a link to the word in the dictionary. Here it is. Okay. So here we go. Rhetorical. So everybody on their phone now has the definition of rhetorical in Webster's dictionary. So first definition, relating to rhetoric. That doesn't really help us. Second definition, it goes further into meaning, well, hold on a second. Rhetorical means asked merely for expect with no answer expected. That's what rhetorical might mean. Also, it means rhetoric. If you look at the word rhetoric, click on the word rhetoric. It says, there it is, the definition, who said ancient times, the study of principles of rules of composition formed by critics of ancient times. If you look at definition B on rhetoric, when you click on rhetoric and look at definition B, I'm actually going to circle this and send everybody the circled screenshot right here on their phone, right here. Okay. We're here to ping right now. I just gave everyone the highlighted definition B. Who could read what I just highlighted?
I can read it.
Sure, Rosa, go
Good
for it.
morning, everyone.
Good morning, Rosa.
The study of writing or speaking as a means of communication of persuasion.
Yes, the study of writing or speaking, writing or speaking as means of communication or persuasion. So that's exactly what this means, rhetorical forms, to communicate or to persuade. So where I ended class last week introducing the thesis statement, that is an argument. So when you're writing an essay, you will have a thesis statement. That means you're arguing something. You're not just writing for the sake of writing. You're making some type of argument. You're communicating some type of idea. You're persuading the reader of a particular viewpoint that you are arguing, and that's rhetoric. Rewriting what I wrote there. So last week I ended with a very, very fast breakout room. It was super fast. Maybe it was like 5 minutes, because I wanted to compare the way rhetoric works in different cultures and different languages. So here is how English rhetorical forms work. When you write your essay, who remembers where you put your thesis statement from Tuesday? In the beginning, the end, the middle?
In the beginning.
Yes, I'm so proud of everybody. Yes. So in this culture and in this language, the thesis statement always starts at the very beginning. So Madhavat, why is this English right here, the rhetorical form is just a straight line?
Because there is the paragraph
contain hook, the first paragraph contain hook and the thesis statement, and continue with the second paragraph and third and the last, which is a conclusion. So there is
Exactly.
sequences
Exactly.
an idea.
Perfect. Perfect. So culturally, that might be sometimes extremely difficult to grasp. This is where I ended this last week. When you're writing an essay in a university or in a high school in this country in English, the teacher needs to know what your argument is, what it is you're trying to say from the very beginning paragraph. Now, I wanted to ask, can anyone compare a different way that they might have learned to write an essay when they were in school, speaking and writing in another language? I gave the example last week of the East Asian rhetorical form. When I taught in China for several years, the English method of beginning with your argument is exactly the opposite of the Chinese way. And other similar East Asian languages like Japanese or Korean or Vietnamese, the argument doesn't go at the beginning, it goes at the very, very end of the essay. So oftentimes a lot of students would begin with a loosely related topic, get closer to the topic, get closer to the argument, and by the time the paper is finished, boom, the reader knows exactly what they're trying to say. It's like reading an English essay backwards. So a lot of students from cultures in East Asia would have a really hard time studying, coming to college, speaking English fine, but then writing an essay, you have to train your mind to think in a totally different way. Guadalupe, would you like to share your experience?
Yes, for example, in my country, that is Mexico, we used to put our conclusion at the end of the essay. So you have to give the history, introduction, history, the theories, and at the end, you have to give the conclusion. So it's opposite that in English, that here in the US.
When you give the conclusion, or do you mean you give your argument, your thesis statement at the end?
Yes, my argument. And why is your argument? Because of this. Because all of the things that I have said in my essay at the beginning, that is my conclusion. This is my conclusion.
Okay. Okay. Very, very nice. Thank you so much, Guadalupe. Kimberly.
Well, teacher, in my country, it's like the same structured, but the thesis statement is in the body paragraph, in one of the body paragraph. Like it's not at the beginning.
Kind of like
in
in the middle.
Yeah, in the middle.
Okay. I think that might fall into this pattern right here, Romance languages. Anyone else have a, Marvat, would you like to share?
Sure. In our language, the Arabic language, there is too similar to English, because the essay began in introduction, and the thesis statement in the middle, as like said Kimberly. And the last, there is the conclusion and the result and conclusions.
That makes sense, because Arabic, a lot of Spanish came from Arabic. So I think that does, in my mind, that might be a clue. Very nice, thank you. Does anyone else have can anyone else share how they learned to write an essay and make an argument? Yes, let me see, Fernanda.
In my country, Brazil, it's the rhetorical romance, because it's not speak direct, give some introduction and then conclusion.
Excellent. So yes, so not be so direct. Exactly. Yeah. Whoops. That's oh, I'm sorry, my slides are bouncing again. I'm glad you mentioned that. So yes, so there would be a similarity between Spanish, Portuguese, and Katya is not here right now, but she was saying something similar as as a French speaker, that what you're saying is that it would be improper to be as direct with a thesis statement in her culture. Yes, Guadalupe. Did you mean to put your hand up, Guadalupe? Okay,
Sorry?
that's not.
Sorry.
Oh, I thought you put your hand up. Oh, no problem, no problem. So yeah, nice. So yes, this is a nice review of what we were doing last class. So it's good to understand, instead of when we look at a format of writing an essay in English, it's good to understand how it might be extremely different from writing an essay in another language, the structure of the argument. So now I'm going to leave the slide and go to the outline in Google Classroom. So here's our assignment. Whoops. Here's our assignment in Google Classroom, where I give everybody a template to follow with an outline. So here it is, making an outline. Now, everybody has their own individual copy of this outline, but I'm going to go over the steps right now with everyone. So when you open up right here, we did this last week, but I think it's still good to read the instructions. And you have plenty of time. This isn't due till Monday. And it's not a lot of writing. It's just an outline, which is just a plan for an essay. Does anybody feel like reading? Wesley, Bruna, Alfie, anybody?
May I, teacher?
Absolutely, Kimberly, go for it.
Okay. Attaches a format for a for a 5-paragraph essay outline. The topic of this essay is gentrification of Boston's Latin Quarter. Following the discussion we had in class, fill out the form attached. The topic of the essay is gentrification of Boston's Latin Quarter. Answer the question in your thesis statement. Does gentrification improve Boston's Jamaica Plain?
Very good. So last week we spent a lot of time really developing arguments. People looked at the positives and negatives of gentrification. We looked at the root word gentrification, gentry meaning the ruling class, the elite. We looked at the complicated issues and how a similar story is told in a lot of American cities and worldwide, but particularly the idea of elites retaking the city center. That's a very American story in the last 20 years. But where would you structure your argument? If you're going to argue that gentrification is overall positive or overall negative, how would you put that together in a 5-paragraph essay in English? That's what the outline is for. If I open up the outline, this is how you fill it out. Title. You can call it whatever you want. My essay about JP. Then you can call it, introduction, paragraph 1. Who remembers what the hook is? I didn't spend a lot of time going over a hook.
I just remember Peter Pan.
No problem. Now, the hook is a way to grab the reader. Remember, I was telling you that it's okay to be funny in a hook, even if you're writing an academic essay?
Yes.
Who remembers some examples of comedic, ways to attract a reader?
Is when the writing fits with the sentence, with the topic, teacher.
Well, of course you want the writing to fit with a topic, but that's not what a hook is.
Can I, teacher?
Absolutely, Marva, yes.
Is a gentrification in Jamaica playing good or bad impact?
There you go. That could be, yes. So you used an example of a question. A question could
yeah.
be a hook. Absolutely. And that's not her thesis statement because she's not making the argument. She's just getting the reader to get interested. Ooh, what's gentrification? Ooh, I know Jamaica Plain. Tell me more. That's all it is. So I'm going to use Madhavat's hook there. Is gentrification, I'm paraphrasing, not exactly, good or bad for JP. I'm paraphrasing loosely. So if that is your hook, that's just something to grab the reader. Now remember, that's not a thesis statement. The thesis statement is the argument. Kimberly, would you like to create a thesis statement for us, just to practice?
Actually, teacher, you said one in the last class, and I remember, I'm not wrong, was why only white people live in the Latin quarter?
Yes. Why did I say that as an example of a hook?
Yeah, because it was comedic.
It was a joke.
Yeah.
Get it? Latin Quarter, mostly white people. That's the joke. That would be the hook to grab people.
Exactly.
And it would tell exactly the story of gentrification. The way the documentary went from the Dominican restaurant and people from Brockton coming in to get Dominican food to white people playing bluegrass and country music at a music festival in the Latin Quarter. Yes, so that's an example of a hook. Kimberly. Now, Kimberly, would you do me a favor? And I want to hear your thesis statement. Make your argument. Is gentrification making...
I have a question of...
Sure,
about,
Guadalupe.
the hook has to be a question or
No.
it could be a affirmative sentence?
It is some way to remember why it's called a hook. It's like fishing.
Yeah.
Grab the reader.
Okay.
So Madhavat used a question, and that's fine. I used a joke because I like comedy.
Perfect.
You could use something more serious. Watch this. You could use something more serious that will still work as a hook. Watch this. The Boston's Latinx community has been priced out of the Latin Quarter. That's not a question, and it's not a joke. It's very matter of fact.
Okay, perfect.
But that still works as a hook.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
And it's also not the thesis statement.
Thank you.
It's something to grab the reader. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go back a little bit to the rhetorical patterns. Okay, so here in the slide of rhetorical patterns, all these different languages have patterns of rhetoric that are not direct. Am I right? So for East Asian languages, so indirect, the essay will start far away from the argument and get to the argument at the end. Romance languages will be somewhat direct in the middle, really get to the point in the middle. English gets to the point from the first paragraph. But just because English is more direct than other languages, it doesn't want to be so direct that the reader that you reveal everything from the first sentence. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
I think
So,
like,
Yeah.
sure.
yeah. You want a little tease, a little tease, like, what's happening here? Tell me more. That's what the hook is. Even though English is a very direct language, a hook can help grab the reader's attention before revealing the whole story. So that's the difference between the what a hook and the thesis statement.
And George,
Yeah.
what is the difference about the title? Because sometimes the title,
A title is just a name of the essay. What are you gonna call it? Where is my there it is. So yeah, a title is just a title, a name. That's why I said my essay about JP. You can call it whatever you want.
Teacher,
So
can
yeah.
I read what I wrote?
Sure. Can you share your thesis statement? Is that Kimberly?
So can I try, teacher?
Yeah. Who was it? Kimberly just now who wanted to share?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, Kimberly,
Thank you, yeah.
give
Come
us
back.
your thesis statement.
Okay. I said, have you wondered why most of the Latin community have to move out from the Latin Quarter? Gentrification is a complicated topic because there are people who are benefiting and people who are struggling because of it.
Nice. That was a perfect hook and a perfect thesis statement. Gentrification is a complicated topic because people are, I'm paraphrasing, both struggling and benefiting. Well, actually, do you end your paragraph there, or do you identify who is struggling and who is benefiting? Who's the winner, who's the loser?
No, I'm gonna leave it for the argument.
Okay, gentrification. I'm gonna paraphrase it, less formal than gentrification has winners and losers. Or gentrification is good for some and bad for others. And you want to make your sentence a little more better than this, more complex. I'm just writing the ideas.
Got it.
Okay, that's if that works as a thesis statement. It's good for these people, bad for these people. That tells us your argument, and that gives me a reason to go into a body paragraph. Who's it good for? Who's it bad for? Why? What's an example of a positive? What's an example of a negative? Marvat, can you give us an example of one of your topic sentences in your paragraph 2 with a supporting idea?
Yes, the gentrification is a challenge for a Latino community because the high rent and the displace of people far away from this area.
I rent, and what I'm doing is I'm deliberately, I'm doing something, what Madhavat said is much better than what I'm writing, and I'm doing this on purpose. High rent pushes the Latin X community away. What I'm putting here is just the idea in a very simple sentence.
Teacher, can I ask you something? The thesis statement should be 1 sentence, 2 sentences. How much sentences
a solid
can express
complex
the
sentence.
idea?
Yeah, a good complex sentence. And remember, you're going to rephrase it in other paragraphs. 1 sentence that really makes your argument.
So it should be supporting with some details or not?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And yes, and that's what the rest of these paragraphs are for. So essentially, anybody ever watch a movie, a court movie where a lawyer has to convince a jury that somebody's guilty or innocent?
yes.
Basically, think of yourself as a lawyer. You're gonna say, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, my client is innocent. That's your thesis statement. Here's why. Evidence, 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 evidence.
So the answer of the why is all the supporting ideas?
Yes, exactly, exactly, exactly. That's absolutely right. That's the way this works, as opposed to supporting ideas, and here's why. Perfect, Guadalupe. High rent pushes Latinx community away, supporting ideas, and you could just give like right now, so high rent, what's high rent? Okay, right now, an average 2-bedroom in JP is 22 to 2,600 per month. That's what we looked at last class. Proof. If you are not a previous homeowner in the Latin Quarter, you've got to have some money to be there. Evidence. Body paragraph. So we've heard from Kimberly, heard from Marvat. If our thesis statement is this, it's good for some people, it's bad for others. We've got, let's think creatively here. This tells us, okay, so if we're saying it's pushing certain people away who don't have this amount of money, well, how could gentrification be, well, who else is it not good for? Or who is a winner in this situation? Who wants to give me another topic sentence with a supporting idea? Anybody want to try?
The people can live safely.
Over the past 20 years, JP has grown much safer. And then evidence could be homicides and robberies have decreased. Did ever sense? And this is where you would have actual evidence for your paper. You would get police statistics, whatever. Homicides and robberies have decreased since, I don't know, what's 20 years ago, 2002. Why do people want to pay so much to live here? Here's why.
Teacher, I have a question. About this. When you said that the rent pushes the Latin community away because the rent increased.
Actually, that wasn't me. That was Marvat.
Okay. But you're talking about Latin community, and then it comes to say homicides and robberies has decreased since 20. It's because Latin community went away.
Well, this is how you're going to argue. Well, give me the answer is actually in the documentary that we watched.
Okay.
So what you're doing is, if you're looking at an argument, okay, Boston's Latinx community has been priced out of Latin Quarter. High rent pushes the Latinx community away. Over the past 20 years, JP has grown much safer. Actually, you know what, Rosa, I think an answer to your question is best phrased by Guadalupe. Guadalupe, why did JP become much safer?
Why did you? Because they they fought for the safe.
Okay, who is they? Who remembers from the documentary? The name of this organization, the Hyde Park. What's their name, everybody, from the documentary? Who are these people? Guys, documentary, we all watched it. The Hyde Park Task Force. Who are they? You remember them, Guadalupe?
I don't remember. What the community was?
You were the star of the last class because you were championing the Hyde Park Task Force. Who were they? The Hyde Park Task Force. Guys, somebody's got to remember, this was the last two classes we watched this documentary. Tell me. Otherwise, we're going to have to stop here and go back.
JP or Latin Quarter?
No, Estefania, who are the Hyde Park Task Force? If we don't know, this is the topic of the essay. If we don't know, we got to go back.
Jamaica Plain?
All right. All right. Okay. This is good. Thank you, Rosa. This is where I need evidence. I need to stop and go back. Here we go, everybody. We're going back. We're going to stop right here and we're going to go back. Okay. Back to where we were. And that's not a problem. It's better to review than keep going without evidence. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Ba, 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 ba. Oh, there it is. Okay. Here we go. No, come on. All right, Hyde Park Task Force. Here we go. Everybody, you're going to remember this from the last two classes, right? You know what? I think we need to practice note taking. Okay.
But
I think everybody's watched it, but I think we need everybody grab either something on your phone or something to write with. Note taking. So we're going to look at the history
that
of
was
the
not
neighborhood.
like the organization that works to, like, I think development or to improve
Yes.
communities.
Yes, yes, yes. Now you're pulling from your memory. You want to be pulling from your notes. So if you're going to use this in your essay, always be in the habit of taking notes, either with a pen or just the notepad app on your phone, whatever works, or open up a second window in your computer. Here we go. The Hyde Park Task Force.
Los americanos no querían vivir en Jamaica Plain. Tenían, más bien fueron huyendo.
Well, what did he just say? When he says the Americans, he means white people. They didn't want to live here. Why?
Issue. Empezaron a vender drogas y por la calle y se puso muy duro esto por acá.
There were very active and aggressive drug dealers who were saying to me, "You looking? You looking?" That's all they kept. They assumed I was a client, even though I had a 6-month-old child in one of my arms.
Antes aquí nadie quería vivir. Los americanos no querían vivir en Jamaica Plain. Tenían, más bien fueron huyendo.
We need a place that will lessen the gang violence and stop the drug dealing. Gang members are recruiting, and what is the community doing about it? That's the question.
The neighbors got together, and we're like, what are we going to do about this?
We dream that.
Okay, guys. This is the Hyde Park Task Force. And if you look at their clothes, it's circa 1995, the way they're dressed. So all of these guys would be in their, probably my age, their 30s and 40s now. What are they doing? Protesting. They're demonstrating. They're sending a message to the criminals in their area. You are not welcome.
It's a very, we're like, what are we going to do about it?
One family.
Oh, why is this this is when the technology drives me nuts. Here we go. I know I sound like an angry old man, but here we go. Okay.
Notice this, yes, there was still all.
Where is that section? Hold on. Okay. Starting here, I'm not touching a thing.
Más bien fueron huyendo.
We need a place that will lessen the gang violence and stop the drug dealing. Gang members are recruiting, and what is the community doing about it? That's the question.
The neighbors got together and we're like, what are we going to do about this?
We dream that one day we can play together, stop the hate, and become one family.
Empezó a limpiar un poco la comunidad, poquito a poco, y fuimos mejorando poco a poco.
Por más de 40 años, los latinos hemos trabajado arduamente, sembrando una semilla de unidad en Jamaica Plain.
Well, I have news. If we all come together and we fight and we have a dream and we stick together, it could become reality.
It's important to talk to those who were here, who remember the neighborhood of what it was 60 plus years ago and how far we've come, but that it didn't happen overnight. I know the fight's not over. There's a lot more we can do, but to remember what it takes.
Y es una comunidad que está siendo ejemplo de comunidad. Está siendo ejemplo de convivencia.
So this is exactly what we looked at last week. So the Hyde Park Task Force are these people. What are they doing?
Cleaning the streets.
Yeah, they're making their community better, safer, more desirable. And the long-term result is what? Here comes the topic of the essay.
Started to make the streets safe and, created some cultural vibrancy. The process of gentrification started.
Ta-da! JP today.
La comunidad anglosajona casi no se veía caminando en este bloque.
But we don't have to do that because we looked at that the last 2 weeks. So does everybody understand, anybody who missed classes or missed the recording, does everybody understand the story? Okay. So over the past 20 years, JP has grown much safer. Homicides and robberies have decreased since 2002. High rent pushes the Latinx community away. What would be another body paragraph that we could put here? What's a topic, sentence, and a supporting idea? If we're saying gentrification is good for some and bad for others, who's a winner and who's a loser in the situation?
Good because they made a community organization and they get that the community is safely.
Okay. When you say they, let's go back to the Hyde Park Task Force. The Hyde Park Task Force made their community better. So all those kids and their kids can probably still live in the same neighborhood? Yes or no?
What? Can you repeat again, teacher?
Who understands my question? So all the people that we saw could easily live in the same neighborhood today?
The
Depends.
protesting people, teacher? The protest?
Right, correct. You remember last week I highlighted the restaurant owner of a Dominican restaurant. Most of his loyal clients were driving in from Brockton to get the food. Why?
Yes.
We don't have nothing in Brockton.
Well, why would they
There is not
be,
many-
why
there
would,
is not many,
well, that, yeah,
Spanish
that's the irony. That's the irony. If people in, why is there's this Dominican restaurant established for a long time in JP,
Mhm.
but their most loyal clientele who want that comfort food
Mhm.
are coming from where? Like the
Outside.
barber, the guy cutting his hair, people who have moved, his loyal customers would say, oh yeah, they're all driving all the way in from Taunton to get their hair cut. That's gentrification. Why?
Because the community is there, they feel comfortable, they feel part of them.
And they cannot pay the rent there.
There you go, Estefania. That's what I was looking for. The Hyde Park Task Force made the community better.
Remember your country.
Yeah. As a result, Estefania, what should I put in this supporting idea?
You can say, but ironic.
The irony is good.
The people
Good,
who
Estefania.
fight for clean the community and make Jamaica Plain safer and good for live,
Mhm.
they cannot live there.
Enjoy the okay. So that tells the whoops, that tells the story. I'm paraphrasing. They cannot afford to live there. So this is the irony, and the irony is the right word to use. The irony or the paradox, the double-edged sword, the whatever you want to call it. The irony is the people who fought to make JP safe can no longer afford to enjoy their years of hard work, which is true. And that's what gentrification is all about. People work hard to make a place nice to live. Once it's nice to live, prices to live there will rise. That's the way it works. And that's the story that we're telling. So the question is overall, is gentrification positive or negative? Let's go back. How would we end this? Let's go back to who gave us the thesis statement. Gentrification is good for some and bad for others. Was that Kimberly or was that who gave us this thesis statement?
That was me, teacher.
Wait, who's me?
Kimberly.
Kimberly, it is Kimberly. I thought so. Just double checking. Okay, so Kimberly, at the concluding paragraph, you want to do a restatement of the thesis. How would you restate it in different words, proving your point? Who is it good for? Who is it bad for?
Hold on. Let me think.
Who can help Kimberly out?
Can I?
Go for it. Is this Jose? Beautiful.
I think gentrification corresponded to the process of the modification of the urban space. I don't know.
Well, remember, Jose, you're restating the thesis statement. You're proving, you're bringing this argument to the end of the paper. With all these ideas in the body paragraphs are to prove this point. So how do we finish with the same point? We're not making a new point. Remember, we're proving the original point.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So how can we restate this? It's good for some and bad for others. Who is it good for? Who is it bad for?
It's good for people who are owners of the houses and they don't have to pay rent, but it's bad for the community for 20 years or 30 years works for make the place better for them.
Very good. Gentrification ultimately benefits landowners who profit from high rents, but it is devastating to communities who are torn apart by rising costs of living. So this is the irony. Gentrification made JP a wonderful place to live, but it destroyed the community that made it a wonderful place to live. Get it? That's the whole story. And it's a familiar story all over the world, well, particularly America with our unique story of white flight and gentrification. People 40 years ago, people with money and power left cities and then they returned at the beginning of this century. So does everybody understand the 5-paragraph essay outline?
Yep.
So what I have demonstrated here is what an outline looks like. This is not the paper. This is just a plan for a paper. And this is the format that will save you when you get into college. You put your thesis statement at the beginning, not the middle, not the end. The reader needs to know in the first paragraph somewhere what it is that you're arguing. Your body paragraphs 1, 2, 3 give evidence to support your thesis statement. And at the very end, you come back to prove your point. That's it. This is all I need you to fill out for, this is the homework assignment, is to just write an outline. The writing is not much, it's just a few sentences. But the hard part is constructing the idea and putting it together. And everybody could have a different argument. Estefania, yes.
I have a question about evidence because in Spanish, when you create a essay or thesis, you have to prove that your comment or your opinion is true across or using other people who said similar or the same ideas. So
okay.
here, the evidence is your argument for your thesis statement.
What you're describing is called a scholarly essay. And this is kind of a warm-up to a scholarly essay because I've only given you one documentary to pull from, one single source, interviews with individuals. So in a more advanced lesson, I would ask you to pull from other research about the topic, read multiple articles, look at multiple interviews.
Got it.
So
thank you.
And the answer, no problem. So that's absolutely true in this context, writing an essay in English, but we're not there yet.
Okay, thank you.
We're just looking at the basic structure of a 5-paragraph essay. So I've only given everybody just one source, a single documentary interviewing people in one community. But I'm glad you gave me a perfect transition to make because I'm giving you another source after the break.
Good.
After the break, you're going to listen to a lecture. You hear my daughter in the background now. Hold on. You're going to listen to a lecture by Ken Tanjevic, who's one of the founding members of the Hyde Park Task Force. And he tells a story about living in JP in the mid-1980s and working with community leaders, people who didn't want the crime and all the drugs and the violence, and literally fighting in meetings with the mayor. Not literally, I mean, arguing verbally with the mayor, saying to the mayor's face, this is why we need to change the neighborhood. It took a long, long time to make JP what it is today.
He also
So
the other video, isn't he?
Yep, he's the same guy.
Yeah,
He's the same guy, yeah. He's the same guy. That's what Estefania, I'm glad you asked the question. Wait a minute, shouldn't we get some other information to pull from? That's what the second half of class is going to be. You're going to learn a little bit more about how JP transformed, because it wasn't just a bunch of kids, painting murals, cleaning a few parks, and then overnight it became too expensive for anybody to live in. It was a long process, a really tough fight to make the neighborhood a better place, and ultimately too expensive for the community itself to live in. So we're going to listen to Ken Tanjvik's lecture about this, the transitions that JP has gone through after the break. Now, guess what time it is? Time for a break. Okay, I'm gonna give everybody a 10-minute break. Here we go. Good work, everybody. Let's take a break. right, here we go. For the second half of class, we are going to discuss Ken Tanjvik's lecture. There's a lot of points here he makes. He's got a thick, old school Boston accent. So I'll turn on the, I might pause it at certain sections. But first, let me see who has returned. If your camera's off, just give me the thumbs up emoji like this and let me know you're back. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Excellent. Great, I see. So Fernanda, Alfie. Hey, Carrie, great to see you. I didn't realize you'd come. Fantastic. Mauricio. Excellent. So for this, what I'd like to do is get 3 volunteers to answer these questions. We could actually break it apart with 6 because it's really what he talks about is pretty complex. The first question right here, number 1, what were some of the problems with police in JP? Were in the past tense. There was an issue with policing. Not to say that there are no problems with police in JP today, but there were some unique problems in the past that they had to deal with. Who wants to take this question? I can get 2 people. Estefania and Estefania. Anybody else want to take this one? To join her? Guadalupe, great. Estefania and Guadalupe. Okay, number 2, what were some strategies to improve JP? There were multiple things they did. Fernanda just raised her hand.
Can I, teacher?
Absolutely. Fernanda and Marvat, great. Fernanda, Marvat. Excellent. And number 3, what is the current vision of Boston's Latin Quarter? Now, current, I have to bear in mind, this is dated by about 6 years. So it's contemporary, but it's not 2022. So within the last 6 years. What is the current vision for Boston's Latin Quarter? He talks about their mission today in terms of preserving cultural heritage within the irony of gentrification. Who wants to take that question?
Me, teacher.
Belkis. And anybody else want to take that one?
Me.
You got it. Was that Carrie or was that Rosa?
Rosa.
Rosa, okay. All right. Beautiful. Okay, everybody. Make sure you've got your question, the question that you want to answer written down, and you and your partner will elaborate further on the points that are made in the lecture. So, Estefania and Guadalupe, are you ready? Just give me the thumbs up emoji if you are.
Ready.
Great. Fernanda and Marvat?
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, ready.
Beautiful. And Belkis and Rosa, are you ready?
Yeah, we're gonna watch the video, right?
Oh yeah, I'm just making sure everybody's ready.
Yeah, sure.
I gotta do this to make sure nobody walked away.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna press play. It's about 12 minutes long. I'm gonna press play. I'm not gonna I'm gonna let it go all the way through and then bring it back. I might pause it just to highlight one or two things, but I'm pretty much going to play it all the way through. Here we go. Oh, come on. There we go.
I'd like to explore with you today how a small group of dedicated neighbors can spark the transformation of an urban community, in particular the High Jackson Square community of Jamaica Plain. I was born in Ashmont section of Dorchester, and as a young adult, I lived in several predominantly white working class areas, neighborhoods in Boston. And in the late 70s, I found myself living in Jamaica Plain in a large house with a group of 10 other activist student types. And I knew absolutely nothing about Jamaica Plain. And so one Saturday evening by myself, I decided to take a walk up Center Street. And suddenly I felt like I had entered a foreign country. On the streets, there were lots of people. On the corners, on the stoops, there were lots of cinnamon skin-colored folks hanging out, listening to loud music. Music was blaring out of the stores, the cars, the windows in the homes. The smell of spicy meat seemed to be everywhere, and the smoke of the spicy meat was everywhere on the street. And I'm thinking to myself, is this the United States of America? And so at that moment, I developed an intense curiosity about the Latino culture. And the next 3 years would take me to several Latin American countries where I immersed myself in the language, the culture, the art, the food, the literature. And after a few detours in my life, I was back in High Jackson Square. I had a couple of young children who were half Latino, and we thought, oh, High Jackson Square would be a great place to bring up our children. In the late 80s, all hell seemed to break loose in that neighborhood. It seemed to be a perfect storm of disinvestment, economic recession, massive immigration, lots of cocaine, and youth gang violence. And it led the Boston police to labeling this neighborhood as the cocaine capital of New England.
Okay, so here we go. Estefania and Guadalupe, the late 80s. This is what's going on. Police labeled it as the...
And youth gang violence. And it led the Boston police to labeling this neighborhood as the cocaine capital of New England, and it was considered one of Boston's most dangerous and violent neighborhoods in the city. I remember walking down the street with my one-year-old son in my arms, and on every corner, it seemed, on Center Street that I came to, there were drug dealers there saying, "You looking? You looking?" I witnessed regularly drive-by shootings, beatings over street corner turf for the right to who was going to sell drugs in that corner with baseball bats, with golf clubs. The house next to mine became a crack house. It was a 24/7 operation with all the accompanying noise, drama, and occasional violence. One of my neighbors, Manuela Baez, a Dominican grandmother, was walking on Center Street on a Saturday morning with her family, and she was hit in the back by a stray bullet that paralyzed her for life. One of my other neighbors, Axel Reyes, was coming home from school on the Orange Line, 16-year-old, and he was stabbed to death on the Orange Line in a gang-related incident. And he stumbled out onto the platform at Stony Brook Station, and his sister, who was on another car on the same train, 14 years old, came out, and he died in her arms in the Stony Brook Station. This is a photo of Axel's funeral at Blessed Sacrament Church, and that is his mother who collapsed in grief during the funeral service. So as neighbors, we were absolutely terrified and angry about what was going on, and we had a small initial meeting at the Blessed Sacrament Rectory, And that meeting was interrupted by a firebombing that took place next door, another turf fight over who was going to sell drugs on that corner. But we did regroup, and out of that meeting, the Hyde Square Task Force was born. Now, over the next 2.5 decades, we did a lot of work, and working with other groups and individuals, I think we were able to be quite successful in engaging hundreds of families, mostly Latino families, in community development efforts. Now, what were some of the strategies that we used to get that success?
Okay, so Fernanda Marvat, he's going to go over some strategies, and Estefania and Guadalupe, the issues with police are going to return as well here.
First one was we had to work intensively with the police. We had a very large meeting at Blessed Sacrament Church, over 300 residents, with Mayor Flynn and Police Commissioner Mickey Roach. And the police were basically making all these excuses of how difficult it was to get the drug dealers off the streets.
I'm pausing it right there for a reason. Here we go. I want to replay that. The police were, we had residents with Mayor Flynn. That's a former resident of, former mayor of Boston.
Commissioner Mickey Roach. And the police were basically making all these excuses of how difficult it was to get the drug dealers off the streets. And so one of my neighbors said to the mayor, "Mr. Mayor, what would happen if there were drug dealers in front of your house in South Boston and your wife called the Boston police? What would happen?" And he said, "Well, they would be removed." And my neighbor said, "That's the level of engagement we want from the police in our neighborhood." Also, the work with the police involved a lot of setting up crime watch groups, but the police had to be our strong partners in the early years particularly. Next was we had to really focus on the youth. We had focus groups with mothers, and at that time, this was like in the, again, the late 80s, early 90s, most mothers would not even let their children play out in the backyard because of all the bullets that were flying around. And the number one thing that came through in these focus groups was that they wanted safe and positive activities for their children. Now, we started working with older teens, and we didn't have that much experience because we were just neighbors with no experience in youth development.
So for Fernanda and Marvat, youth, that means young people, teenagers. And I said, we had no experience. We started working with older teens, and we didn't have
that much experience because we were just neighbors with no experience in youth development, and we pretty much lost most of those kids to, they either got killed in gang violence, or they went to jail, or they got deported. But we learned very quickly that we had to start working with younger children. Wanted safe and positive activities for their children. Now, we started working with older
this
teens.
is driving me nuts. Okay, come on. Hang in there, everybody.
Because of all the bullets.
Okay, so for question number 2, what was an issue with a lot of parents? Parents didn't want their kids to go outside because it was dangerous. There was gunfire. So they had to create some safe space and safe activity for young people. But there was another problem.
And the number one thing that came through in these focus groups was that they wanted safe and positive activities for their children. Now, we started working with older teens, and we didn't have that much experience because we were just neighbors with no experience in youth development. And we pretty much lost most of those kids to, they either got killed in gang violence, or they went to jail, or they got deported. But we learned very quickly that we had to start working with younger children at an earlier age and stay with them all the way through high school. And we also wanted to give the youth a vision of going to college and supporting them towards that vision. We've also found that one of the best ways to engage these youth was through Afro-Latin arts, particularly dance and music and eventually theater were the ways to get them in the door and get them to find their voices. Another major strategy we used was voter registration. When we started, this part of the city had the lowest voter turnout set of precincts in the city, and now it's one of the highest. That took a lot of door-to-door activity, sustained activity over the years, and we found we got a lot more attention from elected officials and a lot more resources when we could show that people in our neighborhood voted.
This right here, that's very important also for question number 2. We started in this part of the city had the lowest, the lowest voter, this part of the city had the lowest voter and when I get there, I'm going to underline the words and ask everybody what it means. The lowest voter here it is. This part of the city had the lowest voter what?
Part of the city had the
I'm going to
lowest.
highlight it here. The lowest voter
Voter turnout set of precincts in the city, and now it's one of the. When we started, this part of the city had the lowest voter turnout.
That's a new phrase. What does voter turnout mean? This is for our Fernanda and Marvat. They're going to need this to answer question number 2. Voter turnout, what does that mean? What does it mean to vote?
Make your voice raised.
It means to actually vote. It means to go to the post office, register your name as a voter, and then go to the polls on election day and actually vote.
Was voter registration.
Right, good. Registration
We got
means
a lot more attention.
yes, exactly. Voter turnout. So voter turnout means if people actually physically voting, getting those ballots filled out, either putting them in the mail or going into the polls to actually vote. So to clue you into that one, if the mayor or other elected officials are not paying attention to the people in that area, why might that be?
A lot more recourses.
Well, in this case, if you work in government, how do you keep your job?
When you voter registration,
right,
from elected officials and a lot more recourses on the
right.
show.
Well, basically, if you have to get the voters to re-elect you, but if you notice that in one community people are not voting, how much attention are you going to pay to that community?
Community, it's their more voice.
I'm gonna voter turnout means people voting. If people in one community vote less, how much attention will they get from the government?
Less.
None.
Nothing. Right. So that became a big problem. So this is number 2, some of the strategies. That was the second strategy. And that's tied into issues with police.
Set of precincts in the city, and now it's one of the highest. That took a lot of door-to-door activity, sustained activity over the years. And we found we got a lot more attention from elected officials and a lot more resources when we could show that people in our neighborhood voted. And two major fruits that came out of those efforts were that we had our first state rep, Latino state rep, Jeffrey Sanchez was elected and is still there. And we had our first state senator, Latina Senator Sonia Chang Diaz, they both kept.
Whoops, sorry about that, but he said immediately, all of a sudden, when people from the Latinx community in JP start voting, they not only get more attention from government, they become the government. They say, you know what, maybe we ought to start running for office. Maybe we should start making some laws. So that's a big change.
Attention from elected officials and a lot more resources when we could show that people in our neighborhood voted. And two major fruits that came out of those efforts were that we had our first state rep, Latino state rep, Jeffrey Sanchez was elected and is still there. And we had our first state senator, Latina Senator Sonia Chang Diaz, they both capitalized on the base of voters that we had developed. Finally, the other strategy we used was to support the local businesses, and one example of that was that there was a proposal to put a huge Kmart in Jackson Square with a massive parking lot, and the small businesses were very fearful that they would be put out of business if that happened, and so it took a lot of energy and a lot of work to go up against a corporation like Kmart, but we were successful in doing that. Now, we had all this success, the streets were vibrant, the streets were safe, but then we ran into another challenge which we hadn't thought of, and that was gentrification. Once the streets were safe and settled and the businesses were flourishing, High Jackson Square became a mecca for multiculturalism, and it just became a very highly desirable place to live. So a lot of the housing that had been for decades for working Latino families suddenly became luxury condos. And so now we had another challenge, was how do we preserve this Latino identity of the neighborhood? A few years ago, some of the small business owners up there came up with this idea of branding the neighborhood as Boston's Latin Quarter. And that's an idea that's been gaining a lot of attention and attraction. Boston has Chinatown, very vibrant neighborhood. It has the Italian North End. We have the Dudley area, rich in African-American culture and history. We have South Boston with a strong Irish culture. So now we want to put the Boston Latin Quarter into Boston's social fabric. Now, why should the Latin Quarter be in this part of Jamaica Plain? Well, there's a 60-year history of Latino immigration, one wave after the other that has come and settled there. Thousands of Latinos have come through this neighborhood as their port of entry into the United States. In spite of all the changes, there's still 40% of the folks up there are Spanish-speaking. And of the 125 businesses on Center Street in that area, 65% of them are owned by Latino immigrants. Finally, we have a huge resource up in our neighborhood, the Blessed Sacrament campus. And currently the Hyde Square Task Force is planning to develop a Afro-Latin Cultural Center in this building, and we're looking for partners right now to do that. And behind the church is the old Catholic grammar school, which the Hyde Square Task Force owns. And in that building, we were able to bring Afro-Latin arts programs for over 1,000 youth each year. It was a struggle to get the Blessed Sacrament Church over a decade ago. And so several groups, including the Hyde Square Task Force, and I got to say the Jamaica Plain Neighborhood Development Corporation and other like-minded groups, we were able to get the whole campus under neighborhood control. So our vision for the Latin Quarter is very simply to make it a dynamic Latino business center that will be a destination place, have certain specialty goods that people can come to and restaurants, And we also want it to be the hub of Afro-Latin arts in the city of Boston. The number of cultural offerings in Afro-Latin arts have not caught up with the population, and we want this to be the center of where these artists will come together. And very simply, we have two strategies. One is just simply to preserve the affordable housing and find opportunities to develop more. And also, we're organizing lots and lots, dozens every year of major cultural events, a lot of them outdoor, that will attract people from JP, will attract people from all over the city, and like I said, be a destination place for tourists. And so if there's hundreds of people coming for cultural events, then they will need places to eat and drink, and we've already seen that that creates an uptick in the local economy, and that's what we're striving for. So I want to invite all of you to come up to the Latin Quarter, shop up there, eat there, and during the warmer months of the year, you'll see many, many different outdoor activities, from outdoor Zumba to salsa, evening salsa parties, to arts exhibitions, to concerts, to outdoor theater. And so please come up there, listen to the rhythms of bachata, merengue, salsa, samba, tango, and get some pastelitos, get some ropa vieja and tostones, and viva Latin Quarter.
All right. Estefania and Guadalupe, are you ready?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. What were some of the problems with police in JP?
Guadalupe, do you want to start?
Okay, thank you, Estefania. Well, there was a big problem with drug dealers, and the police and the police commissioner excuses themselves about the difficulty of getting those people off the street.
Yeah, there were excuses. Like, this is too tough. We just can't do it.
Yeah.
Nice. Estefania, add to that. Yeah.
They want the police attend the calls there too, you know, like if another place they call in the police, arrive and fix the problem, they weren't expecting the same for them, and they were working supporting the police too.
There we go. Yeah, and he used the quote from the meeting with Mayor Flynn. Hey, what if this was happening in your neighborhood in South Boston? Very nice. All right. Number 2, Fernanda and Marvat, are you ready?
Yes.
I remember 3 strategies and the intensive work with the policy and to engage the younger and arts, particularly dance and music. And another strategy they used was voter registration.
Yes. Very Marvat.
Yes. The Hyde Park Task Force is working on a strategy for focusing on youth and mothers to create a safe and positive activity for their children. And there is no, they have no experience with the older youth. So they working and focusing on the younger children and give vision to go to the school and join to the Afro-Latin art program besides the voter registration.
Very good, very good. All right. Yes, and voter registration, as we can see, is a big one, which everyone could probably see that it ties into question number 1 as well. If people are not voting and ultimately keeping government in line, this is an example of how democracy is supposed to work. If governments know that they won't maintain power unless they are serving the needs of the voters, governments will never listen to the voters. And if certain neighborhoods do not vote, do not exercise that their democratic responsibilities, it's going to be very difficult to get any attention from governments. So once this Hyde Park Task Force got the attention of the government and then started registering their neighbors to vote, all of a sudden things were very different. Police all of a sudden started arresting criminals, and the neighborhood gradually became a much safer place to live. 3, what is the current vision for Boston's Latin Quarter? Belkis and Rosa. And he kind of, with his last message was, Viva la Latin Quarter.
Preserve affordable housing. Having dynamic Latino center, have a Afro-Latin cultural center, making cultural events to attract people. And
yes, is how he's feel that he is in her country. He don't miss her music, his culture, his food. He feel as he likes as home in our country. They don't miss the music, the food, their culture. They feel something like that they are in our country, because he can listen music, bachata, and merengue, and he feels that familiarity that they have in their country.
Belkis, you got to be more specific. Who is he and who is they, and how does it answer the question, what is the current vision right now?
I can see that they feel is something like that they are as their country.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now, the last one thing that Rosa mentioned is preserve affordable housing. That ties into gentrification, preserving affordable housing. Is that doable? Is that happening? Last class, everybody Googled on their phone apartments in JP.
No, it's not happening. But if they've been working for 40 years to maintain or to keep their streets safe, and they achieve that, they can achieve the other if they, continue working on it. And that's what they're doing. They're not done yet.
Okay. All right, everybody. Well, we're going to finish with a quick breakout room. Going back to the initial question, whoops, I'm sorry, wrong class there. The initial question for the assignment. You want to finish, fill out this outline. The assignment is to fill out the outline exactly how we did it in the first class. Fill it out and attach it. So this is the assignment for the 29th. It's Tuesday of next week. Give a thesis statement, First body paragraph, topic sentence, supporting idea. Second topic sentence, supporting idea, not writing the full paragraph, but having an outline. This is just a blueprint for your paper. And then a conclusion. Any questions about this? What we went over in the first half of class.
No, teacher.
Great. Great. So let's go back to the beginning of the initial question. Does gentrification improve Boston's Jamaica Plain? I'm going to stop sharing my screen and ask everyone to make an argument. Does gentrification improve Boston's Jamaica Plain? I'm going to put you into breakout rooms and practice arguing your thesis statement verbally with each other. If you don't have your thesis statement yet, practice it in breakout rooms to wrap up class. Does everybody understand?
Teacher, repeat the question again, please.
It's exactly what the question is that you want to answer for the outline. Does gentrification improve Boston's Jamaica Plain? Has Jamaica Plain become a better place? Does it improve Boston's Jamaica Plain? I'm going to put everyone into 3 breakout rooms right now to wrap up class. Here we go. EBT. Yep, EBT. Okay. Okay, ideally. Mm-hmm. 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 Rhetorical. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Shit, yes. Mm-hmm. 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 Mhm. 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 All right, everybody, that's it for today. We're gonna wrap things up. And does anybody have any questions?
I just want to say thank you very much for the class. Very interesting. I learned a lot from everyone. Muchas
Thank
gracias.
you, Rosa. Wonderful to hear. All right. Well, I'll see you next time, everybody.
Adios.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Have a nice weekend.